What's up, everybody? It is Portal season, which means you are joining a very tired Sooners on SI podcast here today. But don't worry, we've got the whole squad. Designated survivor Brady is in a bunker. He just picked up the Samuel Masigo news. We record usually at noon on Wednesdays, which means that Samuel Masigo reportedly hit the portal literally minutes ago. So that gives you a little bit of a hopefully landmark of where we're at. Other than Brady, who is stowed away, we got the usual crew. I'm Ryan Chapman hanging out here. We got John Hoover. John, how have you enjoyed your first week of the portal being open here in 2026?
Hey, Samuel Masigo, don't blame me for that one. I showered yesterday. So,
Yeah. That is the, you know how it goes. Right here we got our man Carson Field, glowing in a stress-free week for Carson as far as Seattle goes. If could I have your offensive coordinator? We'll negotiate off air.
Yeah, hope not on that, but thankfully the Seahawks taking a little bit of portal stress away from me, making things a little bit easier. Don't have to worry about writing 20 portal stories a day and my team losing in the first round. So doing fine, all things considered.
Super helpful there to then for grabbing the one seed in the whole schedule at large. We also got the great Ryan Aber, who for Carson, he's about to ramp back up into basketball mode tonight for the Sooner men. Aber and I are about to ramp into a huge stretch for the Sooner women. It is we're not short on content around here right now, Aber.
Yeah, no doubt about it. There's always something, and certainly, heck, we're gonna tie in the Sooner women to some of this football talk today. For sure, but definitely a big stretch here coming up for Jenny Baranchik's club.
Yeah, we'll get to the hoops at the very, very end, but let's waste no more time, guys. It's portal season. Jim Naggie and his staff, as well as Brent Venables, have been getting after it, and we'll get to some of the outgoing guys, because last week we were right when Michael and Malik Hawkins had hit the portal. We've got a lot of destinations, all that stuff, but let's dive into the new Sooners first. As it stands at 12:13 p.m. on Wednesday, here is currently the incoming portal class. Hayden Hansen, the Florida tight end, started off on Sunday night. That rolled into Caleb Nitta, the offensive lineman from Western Kentucky. He is now in the boat. Oklahoma strikes with wide receiver Trell Harris, a third-team All-ACC selection last year at Virginia. They added Amarian Harris, the offensive lineman from Arkansas with some SEC starting experience. Lloyd Avant, Colorado State running back, spent a year at Tulsa. Rocky Beers, the brother of Reagan Beers, as Aber just alluded to, tight end, Colorado State. Dakota Fields, an Oregon corner to come in and add some depth there with 3 years of starting experience. The one that was heard all around the 40 acres on Twitter, at least, Parker Livingstone, the former Texas receiver, Arch Manning's former roommate, coming in to Norman. And then a couple of defensive additions, UTSA defensive lineman Kenny Ozawalu, and then the latest one, again at 12:15 here on a Wednesday, Cole Sullivan, Michigan linebacker. Lots of positions of need. We're going to hit on all of these guys, but I think coming into this thing, it was one of the big question marks. It was not if Oklahoma was going to add receivers, when, who, what was that going to look like. Probably not Cam Coleman, but Ryan, it sounds like they've done so far a really, really good job, and there's some other names we'll get to later that are still to visit here for Oklahoma in the receiver department.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, OU losing some guys, Deion Burks being one. We'll see. Still haven't had an official announcement from Isaiah Satania that he's returning, but that would be the expectation. But outside of Coleman, to go add a guy like Trell Harris, who had 847 yards on 59 catches last year. OU only had two receivers with more than two wide receivers with more than 21 catches last year. That was Satania and Burks. Needed to add some depth there. And then to go not only get Parker Livingstone, the player who was really good for Texas last year with a little over 500 yards, 6 touchdowns on 29 catches, but to take him away from your biggest rival. I think some big time inroads made there. There hasn't ever been any question about Emmett Jones's recruiting ability. It's just whether he can, one, keep these guys healthy, and two, develop them. But I think as good as they could have done in the receiver portal, like you said. And if they weren't going to go out and get and pay for Coleman, this is about as well as they could have done.
Yeah, it's Carson. We look at the first one, Charles Harris coming in. That seems like I don't know. I was a little surprised maybe by the reaction of some of the Oklahoma fans, not all, but some of the people on Twitter. I thought that was a big time addition, and it's also let's see, how do we talk about this? Oklahoma identified what they wanted, and Oklahoma did not get into a bidding war. They got him on campus, immediately got him in and out. That doesn't mean he came cheap, but this was quick work. This was what we saw with Jim Naggie, with Jake Michael and Jaden Ott. That kind of fast strike.
Yeah, no, I like the pickup a lot, especially I noticed this the other day. The production from former ACC wide receivers in 2025, whether that's Casey Concepcion, Malachi Fields, Eric Singleton, there were some really good receivers that played ACC ball in 24 and then played somewhere else in 25. I think Trell Harris can be next up in that. Just a big play guy, which this receiver room was good. Deion Burks had his flashes, certainly was great in the playoff game. But just getting some more experience transfers, kind of steering away from that FCS group of 5 mold that they followed a little bit last year in the portal. I think Harris, but aside from getting a bidding war with Texas Tech, Texas, A&M, it's about as well as they could have done, to Aber's point, getting him, getting Livingstone. I think they're set up in a really good spot, especially if Satania comes back next year.
Yeah, guys, if Satania comes back, that's an absolute game changer for Oklahoma's offense next year. When do you think we'll hear something? Real quick feedback. When do you think we'll hear something on his NFL situation? He's got the deadline's coming up, right?
Yeah, last year we kind of had to go off of Deion Burks immediately announcing, which Deion Burks didn't wait too long.
Yeah.
I kind of, in a weird way, have just kind of gone off of how active Satania has been at some of the former Arkansas guys that have visited.
Yep.
It's not usually they're not the actions of someone that's looking toward the NFL generally when you see that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I don't know if there'll even have to be a formal announcement, or if it might just come down like a David Stone thing that randomly, was that on Sunday or Saturday, it just announced that, hey, signed a new deal, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it appears to be about a week. January 14th looks to be the declaration for underclassmen, deadline.
Okay. I think the 15th was traditionally the deadline for that, but that makes sense, 14th, especially with the portal kind of looming. But yeah, you lose Deion Burks as a senior. I mean, 50 catches last year, finished the season fairly strong. Everything hinges on Satania. I mean, 65 catches, almost 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns. After that, Giovanni Gibson's in the portal. Keontez Lewis was hurt a lot of the year. Jermichael Carter, 6 catches last year. You're not getting a lot of productivity out of the guys that came back, at least proven productivity, right? So these 2 guys that they bring in, Trell Harris, big play dude, down the field. He's one of those guys, when you see his film, you chuck it in his direction as far as you can. He's probably going to come up with a big catch. He's got that kind of he can moss people. He's got that kind of talent. And then Parker Livingstone, we saw what he could do against Oklahoma. I mean, he's a legit, reliable wide receiver. You know, he gets open. He's got big playability. He's got escapability. He's a guy that, especially, I saw a tweet yesterday from one of the Texas writers. He had 200-yard games, and his third most productive game was under 50 yards. Okay. That's 2 more 100-yard games than anybody at Oklahoma, coming back for Oklahoma. So he's absolutely an upgrade. What's interesting is Kirk Bowles tweeted out yesterday from Houston, lives in Austin but works for Houston, tweeted out that Oklahoma got him for $800,000. That seems, wow. That figure caught my eye.
It is a very, very, very different strategy than what we saw from Oklahoma last, I guess, winter portal window. That was obviously not Jim Naggie and his crew, where we said the words Moneyball, 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 I think a billion times. it's not quite chasing Cam Coleman, but I would say if you have the Trell production, Livingstone, and then if you can add a Davion Dozier, the App State receiver, who we'll talk about here in a second, a guy that is been very, very public on his X account that he's visiting Oklahoma on Thursday. That's one of those, maybe that's the actual Moneyball thing where it's like, what do? We replace him in the aggregate. It's what does Jim Naggie want his receivers to do? Get on base. But no, it's like Carson said, the thing I love about this group so far is that we're not like wondering, hey, can you make the step up from Arkansas Pine Bluff or things like that? And it's no shot at anybody there, but it's one of those things where for Satania, I think it's no coincidence that for him, it was more about embracing a different role and stepping into a larger role, as opposed to, like, he played at Arkansas in the SEC. We knew what that looked like. Carson very eloquently just talked about, we can draw a pretty clear, this production in the ACC looks like this in the SEC, especially for a guy that is a bubble screen target, someone that can get downfield, like you said, Hoove, stuff like that. And then for Livingstone, I get he wasn't like a 1,000-yard receiver and things like that, but every bit of his production in his career has been in the SEC. And for him, it's kind of like OU's production this year and last year. Last year, you look at, hey, OU's passing attack, there just weren't many yards to go around, so no one really covered themselves in glory. This year, once Mateer's hand got hurt, it was basically just Satania making big plays. There wasn't a lot to go around, so I'm maybe not as concerned by, I know that some of the Texas writers have pointed out, like, well, people act like this is an 800-yard guy or something like that. It's like, yeah, well, no one really caught a ton because the Texas offensive line couldn't protect anybody for half the year. So I think that is going to be really, really comfortable. Like we mentioned, the Dozier kid from Appalachian State, he was at Arkansas for 2 years before Appalachian State, another 6'4", 6'5" type guy. I don't know what his official measurement would be on OU's scale, what that would be. So it looks like more than anything, Oklahoma adding big targets as well for John Mateer. And that is not limited to just the wide receivers, as Carson, the first one in the boat, Hayden Hansen officially, as big a target as it gets from Florida.
Yeah, 6'8", if I'm not mistaken. He is a unit, which OU desperately needs something out of the tight ends room, as that's going to be a position group that's just totally reloaded in 2026 without Joe John Finley, no more Jaron Kanik. Carson Kent is in the portal. Will Huggins, I believe, out of eligibility. So, I mean, getting Hayden Hansen, someone with SEC experience who has scored touchdowns in this league, I think that's massive. And then you guys touched on in the intro, getting Rocky Beers from Colorado State. That's a man that has played a lot of college football. This will be his 6th season, previously playing at CSU, Air Force, and Florida International. Of course, the brother of Reagan Beers. He is another big guy with experience being a playmaker. He was really good. He was a really good player, and this goes with Lloyd Avant, the running back from CSU that OU got. They were both really good players on a really bad Colorado State team this year. Beers' numbers were pretty good, so were Avant's. So just getting another guy with that experience, size, some OU ties, I think that's a big thing for the position group.
Yeah, huge there. And Aber, part of it too will be new tools for whoever the new Oklahoma tight end coach is going to end up being, which I guess on one hand, I know we all had this question of like, how is this going to work if the tight end coach isn't announced, stuff like that. Well, USC doesn't have a defensive coordinator, and they can sign big time defensive guys. This seems like small potatoes compared to some of the other places.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, my thought right now is that they're just waiting on Joe John Finley to land a job somewhere else so that can be, sort of not have to announce that they're firing him in that kind of sense. But clearly they're still making moves at that position. I think you look at the difference in productivity between these two guys and the guys that they brought in last year in Huggins and Kent. And, no offense to them, but just imagine where OU's tight ends would be if Jaron Kanik hadn't gone to the coaches and said, hey, I want to, give this tight end thing a try, because, while each of those guys has certain skills that, helped out the Sooners at various points, mainly blocking, there wasn't a ton of production there, but they want that position to be a significant piece in Ben Arbuckle's offense and in this offense moving forward, as it has been for so long. It just hasn't been that way for the last few years, and I think this is one of the biggest signs that they're serious about changing that dynamic at tight end here moving forward.
Yeah, you would think with guys that have played as much as these guys have played and have been productive as much as these guys. I mean, 31 catches, 7 touchdowns for Beers at Colorado State, and then you went over Hayden Hanson's numbers. First of all, dude is 6'8". I mean, if you're not finding him through the air, you're doing something wrong. 57 career catches, 5 touchdowns. These are guys who not only are involved in the passing game, but you would think after a lifetime, right, of playing tight end that they know a thing or two about getting involved in the run game, being a blocker, being an effective that push pin blocker where you put them on the play sheet and run plays around them. You base the offense basically on a lot of their presence. And that's what Arbuckle wants to do. That's why he went in the portal last year and got so many tight ends. He was desperate for tight ends, him and Finley. And Joe John, came up with these guys, and it didn't really work out very good. And for the third year in a row, Oklahoma tight ends weren't, productive, weren't efficient, weren't effective blockers. And, now with Jim Naggie in the fold, pulling these guys out of the portal, it looks like they're getting some playmakers.
And it's something, too, like, especially in the case of Rocky Beers, what Ben Arbuckle was able to do at Washington State was, we talked about it all offseason last year. It wasn't like the tight ends caught 70 balls, but I think it was 21 or 24 catches by tight ends. 7 of them were touchdowns. Clearly that's a matchup situation. We didn't ever see that, as Jaron Kanik was like the only guy that never ever seemed to be able to get into the end zone. Not really his fault, I don't think. Between Rocky Beers, who has caught a ton of touchdowns, and having a 6'8" target, I think that Ben Arbuckle can try and do some stuff there. Big helps in the run game as well, like you mentioned, John, and Oklahoma's helping itself up front along the offensive line. Those 2 additions, John, I think are going to be one of those guys going to come in and compete for a starting spot, and another one, a really, really comfortable, experienced depth signing.
Yeah, first of all, whoever challenges Oklahoma to a 3-on-3 basketball team or game is going to lose. Hanson's 6'8", Beers is 6'5", and they got an offensive tackle from Arkansas, and Marion Harris, who's 6'7". They got the front line covered. They probably need a point guard or 2. Who knows who that's going to be. But, yeah, Marion Harris, 6'7", 313, a 2-year starter at Arkansas. Arkansas has not had, like, the greatest team, obviously, over the last couple of years, but they have put up some big numbers, including some numbers against Notre Dame. You saw it this year. This is a team that, Bobby Petrino is your offensive coordinator. Guess what? Marion Harris probably knows a thing or 2 about pass blocking. Now, he's from Little Rock, okay? And he chose Arkansas out of high school over Georgia, Miami, Tennessee, Texas A&M, and Oklahoma. So he's always had Oklahoma on his kind of radar. But, yeah, man, he's a guy that, I mean, you look at some of the numbers that he put up, Pro Football Focus-wise, He didn't put up good grades his 2024 season. He was in the 40s and 50s a lot, individual games. But last year, 2025, his second year as a starter, he was in the 50s, 60s, and 70s in most of his games. As we're talking about Pro Football Focus overall offensive grade. Get this: 484 pass plays last year, 2024 last year. 484 pass plays, 22 pressures, 6 sacks. Not great, Bob. Not great. This year, 400 pass plays, 9 pressures, 2 sacks. So he's a guy that took some coaching, a guy that got better, a guy that showed real improvement. And, he was a successful starter over 2 seasons for the Razorbacks. Now, Caleb Nitta is the other one, probably more of a depth guy. I would project that Harris is going to start at right tackle. I think that's easy math. Caleb Nitta, Western Kentucky. He's a center. He started every game at center last year. He's a 0-star recruit, didn't have any FBS offers, walked on at Virginia Tech, transferred to Western Kentucky. He was at Virginia Tech for a year, played at 2 years, and played at Western Kentucky last year, played all 11 games, 653 snaps. He was a starter. He started the last 5 games, or the last 9 games. But you say, well, he played a group of 5 schedule. He did, but one of his best games that he played as a group of 5 offensive linemen, again using Pro Football Focus metrics, was against LSU. He posted a 79 score pass blocking, 62 overall. So if you look at his individual numbers, 394 pass plays last year, just 1 sack allowed. Again, he's playing center, so he's got a lot of help around him, but 5 total pressures. So they're getting 2 guys that I think they have confidence in. One can come in as a starter, and one can come in and play multiple positions as a depth guy.
Feels like Caleb did a pretty easy, this is your Troy Everett replacement. He can Troy Everett on his way out, regardless of if he got the injured year or not, making that thing happen. Carson, I am kind of intrigued. Bojay slimmed down a little bit and compete with Hito Zaida at right guard. Marion had played 6 games at guard, 7 at tackle 2 seasons ago. So I don't know if this is going to be as simple as Fojay and Marion Harris compete at right tackle. Whoever wins there, the other one kind of competes at guard. But we know that Bill Beanbo likes to mix and match and all that. And it feels like that this is going to be a really, really comfortable moment at the very worst to have added a depth swing tackle, which Oklahoma needed a couple of.
Yeah, no, it is. You mentioned Bill Beatonbow and how much he likes to just kind of reorganize the line. And I think he's in a good spot to do so after these 2 offensive line pickups. Really intrigued to see how they use Caleb Nitta. Having played good football at Western Kentucky, as Hoove mentioned, a different level of football, sure. But it seems like he has a lot of upside. I think it was only 2 sacks allowed, 7 pressures allowed this past year. So pretty impressive numbers there from who will presumably be a depth piece on this line. But just the foundation they have with Harris, Nitta, and then all the young guys that showed so much promise, whether that's Fojay, Fasusi, Eddie Pierre-Louis. I think the line's in a really good spot, and that's kind of where Bill Beatonbow can use his magic, his experience, the experience that he has just finding the best rotation, finding those 5 players to fill the slots. I think they're in a good spot to do that now.
You look at it, and the defensive side of the ball got some love as well. Started off with the one that I was not ready for, which was Oregon corner Dakota Fields, a guy 6'2", not really heavily used his first 2 years at Oregon, but 3 years of eligibility remaining. This feels like a very, very comfortable. You lost Devon Jordan. He's headed off to Baylor. Can slide back in there. Now you've got Cortland Guillory, Eli Bowen, Jacoby Johnson, then hopefully you have Dakota Fields. Jay Veli's done a really nice job developing those guys, so someone that can be helpful in the rotation both for this year and you would hope into 2027 and beyond. Defensive line, you got a big win over Texas. Not only did you sign a Texas guy, you beat Texas heads up for UTSA edge rusher Kenny Ozawalu, a guy that he might end up falling into Jonah Laulu territory as someone that, as it is right now, very, very comfortable member of Miguel Chavis's edge group, but it looks like at 6'4", he put on 20-ish pounds from when he committed to UTSA through 2 years to get to about 275. Looks like someone in just kind of some of his pictures that could put on more weight if at some point they want to move him in or out. I don't candidly know like what the exact plan is there, but a guy that as a redshirt freshman, basically 10 games, got 17 total tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 3 quarterback sacks. I think that's going to be really, really convenient, especially when you got Taylor Wine, you got PJ, you got Danny Okoye. But we had talked about you're losing R. Mason, you're losing Marvin Jones Jr., need another guy there as well. And then the really, really big one, linebacker Cole Sullivan was kind of torn between do I return back to Michigan or do I come to Oklahoma? We had talked about this ad nauseum, right, boys, that Kip Lewis, big decision to make. Owen Heineke out of his hands, waiting on the NCAA. Kobe McKenzie, he hit the portal, headed to Northwestern. And then now, after Oklahoma landed Cole Sullivan, Samuel Masigo also hit the portal. But a really, really, really important pickup for Oklahoma. And it's not just like, hey, you added depth to your linebacker room. If it's just Kip Lewis coming back and Cole Sullivan, if Heineke doesn't win his appeal, that's a frontline duo that I think you feel really, really good about. If you can get 2 of Owen Heineke and Kip Lewis coming back, that's even better, that kind of stuff. And Aber, this is another one, much like we talked about with the receivers. Played Big Ten football, played one of the best defenses in the Big Ten. There's no concern for me whatsoever that he'll be able to come in, Brent Venables is going to love him. Brent Venables worked very, very hard to win this recruiting battle heads up, and this should be a very, very, very comfortable fits like a glove type situation for Mr. Sullivan coming into Norman.
Yeah, absolutely. Another guy that obviously OU has been familiar with, scouting Michigan, and to land a guy like this, they needed a big time linebacker. We knew that regardless of what happens with Owen Heineke, what happens with Kip Lewis, this was an area that Brent Venables really narrowed in on that defensive side. And, they took some big swings at a lot of different positions, and for the most part have, connected on those. Missed out on a couple of the guys, but they've hit on most of their big time targets. And this was as big as any of them to get Cole Sullivan, a guy that, like you mentioned, even if those guys come back, he's a guy that's certainly going to make an impact there. I think certainly with Sammy Omosigho leaving in the immediate aftermath of that, you wonder, how that dynamic sort of played out, and also what the conversations have been like. I've said it every week for at least the last 3 podcasts that, I think Owen Heineke, all he has to do is whisper lawsuit, and he's going to have another year of eligibility. And but every day that you go by without hearing that, makes you wonder a little bit more. But certainly a big time get for Brent Venables in this linebacker group.
And I wish we could come on here and tell you, hey, on Friday, that's when the decision comes down, and we'll all know not how the NCAA works. We'll
really,
I know. I know. I've gotten that question on radio a couple of times. Like, do we know anything? It's like, nope, no update. And I can't even tell you like, hey, we should know something next week or something like that, because hashtag NCAA, something that if you pay attention to some of the CFP semifinal media days, Trinidad Chambliss is like pretty frustrated right now because he's like, hey man, I'm just trying to know, like, do I need to get going on this NFL thing? I've already in principle signed the deal to come back to Ole Miss if I've got that year. So that's something there that we'll I think everyone's going to all find out together, and they'll all find out pretty quick. The only guy we haven't really touched on, Lloyd Avant coming in from Colorado State. To me, this feels like you've got the plan, Xavier Robinson, Torrey Blaylock coming back, Jonathan Hatton Jr., the freshman, and Zezepin Walker coming in. You lost Javonte Barnes to the portal. That was very, very expected. You lost Taylor Tatum to the portal as well. Not unexpected, but for me, and it may not be, Lloyd Avant not billed as like the top running back or whatever, but Lloyd Avant Carson, a guy that can run the ball, a guy that is very, very comfortable as a receiver, a guy that can return kickoffs. This to me feels like Oklahoma saying this is the kind of skill set, this is the type of role that Taylor Tatum was going to occupy. You have replaced him with another guy that operates in that kind of realm. And for Taylor, he didn't really get on the field at all this year, a lot of that due to injury stuff. So in a way, whether you think the talent ceiling is as high or not, he was more productive last year than Taylor Tatum simply because he was on the football field, which we know, unfortunately, with so many of the OU portal departures that we're going to talk about here in a second, it's like, hey, love the talent, but if you can never get on the field, you're not a help to any football team.
Yeah, if nothing else, I think he's a good depth piece for this team. Seeing what he did at Colorado State, which I mentioned a minute ago, a bad team in 2025, but he still had some really big games, had some really nice performances. As you mentioned, someone that can catch passes too. I still expect the 1-2 punch to be Torrey Blaylock and Xavier Robinson this upcoming season, also probably seeing some reps from the true freshman. But I think Avant it's easy to not have much depth at running back. You saw that toward the end of the season when we were wondering, is Jada not going to have to play some snaps late in the year? Is Javonte Barnes going to have to burn his red shirt? What's the next option? I think just getting one more guy that, even if he is further down the depth chart, someone with experience that if he has to play in big situations, you don't feel bad about that.
It'll be interesting. As we said, still monitoring. Here's how I kind of view the portal stuff. The first weekend is for your big time, like top overall targets that you were able to get among the first 1 or 2 visits on. Oklahoma got a lot of guys in and hit on a lot of them. Really, I would say the only like heads up battle that I would say Oklahoma just straight up lost, and that does not include like not be able to get a guy on campus, but that kind of stuff would be Van Zumeren, the Michigan State defensive tackle. He obviously signed with USC if you're on that. But as far as the first wave guys go, it seems like Oklahoma hit that out of the park. We mentioned like a Davion Dozier, that kind of guy. You're going to start seeing. Now, I'm going to say this, which means that inevitably by the time that this podcast is up, 7 things will have happened and I'll look like a big old dum-dum, which you guys know. But today, to me, is like the take a breath day, and then you dive back in it Thursday, Friday into weekend 2 of the portal stuff. Part of it, though, is it is a carousel. It spins, it spins, it spins. As much as Oklahoma has enjoyed the spoils of the transfer portal, they have had some other entrants since we last got together. I don't remember exactly when Gentry announced versus when we were on the podcast or not, but we'll just start there. Guys who have hit the portal since we last got together, Gentry Williams, Logan Howland, wide receivers Josiah Martin and KJ Daniels, tight end Carson Kent, as we've mentioned, offensive lineman Jake Taylor, defensive lineman Marcus Strong, Taylor Tatum we talked about, and then Zion Kearney, Ivan Carrion, Giovanni Gibson, and then Sammy Omasigo, who, when I look at this list, I know that we had talked about that first group of guys last week. All of them pretty expected, except for maybe a Kobe McKenzie. But as far as this group goes, you look at it, I think Marcus Strong is a loss, a guy that Oklahoma would have loved to be the number 3 guy in their rotation. I think you look at Zion Kearney as someone that Oklahoma really would have liked to have held on to. Same with Giovanni Gibson, but I do kind of wonder if simply for a guy like Giovanni, he looks at the writing on the wall of Livingstone comes in, Trell comes in, you're bringing in Dozier for a visit, and with as little as rotation there was, it felt like something was going to have to give in this wide receiver room, especially for a guy like Giovanni that excited many before the injury, had to build back from the injury, but now really only has one more year to try and show everyone what he can do at this level.
Yeah, you were hoping that that Giovanni Gibson would be a guy that would be able to stick it out. Kearney as well. You see playmaking ability out of both those guys in the passing game. I think where this starts to hit coaches a little bit in the heart is a guy like Gentry Williams, right, who was literally Brent Venables' first recruit. He gets off the airplane, he waves to everybody, immediately drives to Tulsa and says, "You're going to stick with us, right? You're coming to Oklahoma, right? You're a guy. You are our guy. You got Gentry." Gentry played, and he played well at a lot of times. He just couldn't stay healthy, and that's where, like I said, it hurts those coaches in the heart. To 3 years later, 4 years later, these are guys who are seniors. They've been here since day one. Sexton is another one. Jake Taylor is another one. They've been here for Venables. They were Venables guys. They were guys that he identified and made priorities. And 4 years later, they still haven't played much because of injuries. I mean, Sexton certainly has had stretches where he played, but it's injuries, not performance. It's injuries, not money. It's injuries, not attitude. And so you look at how college football works now, and coaches are having to work in tandem with general managers. And Venables is sitting there going, "God, if there was just some way we could keep Gentry, hey Jim Naggie, if there's just some way we could keep Taylor and Sexton, can we talk to those guys about their salary? Can we talk to those guys about NIL?" And Brent, the numbers just don't work. So it's probably not the favorite thing that Brent's having to go through, because he is, as we all know, a relational guy, not a transactional guy.
I think one that surprised me was what Ryan said, Marcus Strong. He looked really good when he did get snaps this year. I think he played about 100 snaps on the season, had that big safety against South Carolina, had a sack against Kent State. Whenever he was thrown in, I felt like he was a disruptor, and having that depth to go along with Jaden Jackson, David Stone, I think that would have been huge. So I'm a little surprised to see him go. It seemed like his role was finally ramping up. And then Giovanni Gibson, a little surprised by that, just seeing how his role did grow at the end of the year. Had a good game against LSU in the regular season finale, was good against Bama in the playoff. So it seemed like he was finally finding that rhythm. But to Ryan's point, probably did see some writing on the wall with Livingstone, Harris, presumably more guys in the portal. So it's understandable that he'd want to use that last year somewhere else. And I expect him to be good wherever he goes. He's a good player from what we saw in the last few weeks of the season.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because some of this stuff, though, when you look at it in Gentry, like Carson brought up, and who brought up, one of the things with Gentry is I wonder what the calculation is for some of these guys of like, we absolutely love this player when they're here, but if we don't think we can get through 12 games, is there a, hey, if you're kind of looking to go, then we're going to say all the nice things about you and not stand in your way? I wonder with like a guy like Gentry, I wonder what that situation is. I wonder with like some of those offensive linemen we know, Jacob Sexton and Jake Taylor, their Oklahoma careers were not derailed because of talent or anything like that. They were derailed just because they were snake bitten by injuries. It feels like there's a handful of kind of those guys that are departures you hate to see go, but also at this point you need guys that you can count on for 12 games.
Yeah, I mean, heck, you might even throw in a guy like Caden Helms in that regard that was, so snake bitten by injuries throughout his career, even some this year. Just was never able to be that fully healthy guy and get that development that you can get when you're healthy over a stretch. I think, certainly guys like Giovanni Gibson had the potential to be very productive inside the framework of this offense, but also you look at what they're adding, and they're adding guys who are one proven at this level, which is different from, last year where Satania at the wide receiver spot was really the only, Division I or FBS proven guy that they went out and got that had decent numbers there. The rest were, lower division guys. Giovanni Gibson, I think, is a guy who's got a chance to be really, really good wherever he lines up. But at the same time, they needed something, a quick injection of talent, of production, of health there, and just sort of gets caught up in the numbers. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how some of these other guys that have already announced their destinations. What does Jacob Sexton look like at Oklahoma State? Is he able to stay healthy and finally be the player that we had saw in bursts but never could see for an extended period of time? What does Kobe McKenzie look like at Northwestern when he's presumably going to be able to find a much more consistent role there than he did at Oklahoma, even though he had a significant role. It got pared down a little bit, especially with the emergence of Owen Heineke this season. So, it is the reality of things that guys get pushed out that maybe you really like and would love to have on your roster, but roster space isn't unlimited right now, and certainly money isn't unlimited, and you've got to balance that out against adding big time pieces like some of the guys we've seen on the addition side.
I just think that overall, I remember, I know we all did, living through the portal phase last year, and everyone's mentions, which like we didn't sign, but it's not our fault, being like, what is happening with all these schools, guys? When you run down Florida, Western Kentucky, Virginia, Arkansas, a couple of Colorado State, Oregon, Texas, UTSA, Michigan, where the Western Kentucky, nothing against Western Kentucky, but that's being brought in with the mind of a depth piece probably. Colorado State, neither one of those guys maybe the out-and-out starter there to compete. UTSA, I think you could stomach like a couple of, hey, UTSA might be a great eval on a really, really young guy that was missed. I think that this is the type of portal additions, John, that Oklahoma fans kind of had in mind when you talk about what kind of business do you need to do to replenish that roster in the Southeastern Conference and compete year over year. I think this is what a lot of people had in mind when they started really thinking about what the portal stuff needs to look like now that Oklahoma's in the SEC.
Yeah, man, Jim Naggie's having a January, isn't he, so far? Something that's just impressive. I guess he got here at the end of February last year, and that's when he joined the staff, and so he's playing catch up, and he did what he could in the spring, the post-spring portal, which has been eliminated this year. But he kind of took one on the chin. He whiffed on Jaden Ott for one reason or another. I think it's more on Jaden Ott than it is on Naggie. Your kid's got talent. Kid's got a future. It's just for whatever reason he didn't play at Oklahoma this year. For whatever reason. Draw your own conclusions. But give him an off season. Give him a lot of film to evaluate. Immediate film that he can get into. Turn around from 2025 season. Okay, let's look at this Arkansas right tackle. Let's look at this Colorado State tight end. Let's look at this running back. Suddenly his evaluations, when you compare this January to last January, oh my gosh, and where Curtis Lofton was with this staff previously, and the evaluations that came in and the players that came in, it's night and day, guys. It's just night and day. He's done an amazing job so far.
And not just the schools they're landing from, the speed at which this stuff's getting wrapped up. And I think it's a very clear hierarchy of this is target 1, this is target 2, this is target 3, as opposed to maybe we'll do this. Oh, well, this guy popped in. Let's do a little bit of that. I think it's been very, very, from the outside looking in, it has looked like a well-oiled machine. And I think that people around the country are probably taking note. I'm just going to go across the.
We have portal news.
Let it break it. Let us know.
Jaden Hardy has entered the portal.
There we go. Jaden Hardy. That comes from
Matt Zenitz.
Matt Zenitz. Sorry to Chris Hoover. Yeah, Chris.
That's a surprise, isn't it?
We're just gonna peel the curtain back. We have a Jaden Hardy shell, right? So, surprise. I would say if you had asked us 2 weeks ago, yes, but that's been some rumbling, some rumors, things like that. We did have that one ready to go just in case, but it's almost a perfect segue into where I was about to go, boys, which was stop me wherever you want or chip in wherever you want. I'm kind of doing not necessarily names, but we have the first wave of Oklahoma portal additions, places on the roster where they are probably going to be still looking to add as we get into the next couple of days. I would say 1, potentially 2 more depth pieces along the offensive line. Like ideally, if you could get someone on the interior and then another swing tackle, just because OU's second string depth was kind of wiped out by portal happenings. Obviously, they're looking at some more wide receivers like we've talked about. Another tight end, probably. I think they're bringing another tight end. Flip over to the defensive side of the ball. Despite the fact that you landed Sullivan, I think you're going to need to replenish that cheetah position a little bit to either compete with Reggie Powers, share time with Reggie Powers, or come and be behind Reggie Powers. Don't think it'd be the worst thing in the world to maybe add a safety now with Hardy out the door. We'll see what the numbers look like there. And then certainly Miss Van Zummeren need a defensive tackle or 2. Have I overpriced any positions or missed any positions?
I have a question.
Numbers? Yes.
Do they need a portal quarterback?
If you're bringing,
if you can upgrade, I say yeah.
Yeah, if you're bringing, as long as you don't have like a Whit Neubauer or Jet New hit the portal, they like Whit Neubauer. Now, they like him as a backup, I think. And if you said, let's John Mateer enters the NBA draft after 3 games. Sorry, I don't like doing like injury situation. I hate that stuff. I think it'd be a situation where they could step back and go, do we think that Bo Bentley is ready? And if not, we feel super comfortable with Whit Neubauer. Like, I think he's a guy that this staff views as we don't have to rush Bo Bentley if we need him in a pinch. I guess my question, Carson, would be if you've got 4 arms to get through camp and stuff like that with Mateer, Neubauer, Jet New, and Bo Bentley, do you need a 5th in the stable? I don't know what the in the old days where you'd have 130 guys, sure. I don't know with a 105-man roster if you're looking to carry 5 quarterbacks.
Yeah, I definitely don't expect OU to get in the Sam Levitt sweepstakes or anything like that. Nothing that drastic. But, I mean, part of me thinks it might be okay to get like an FCS quarterback, someone like they got Neubauer last year. But I also see the perspective of you have a stud freshman coming in. Neubauer looked, I mean, he didn't play much, but he was decent in those snaps he played against Kent State. Jet New's still young. I mean, they have depth there right now, and if they feel comfortable with both Bentley and Neubauer, and then obviously Mateer starting, I think that's a pretty good spot. But I also don't think it would be a bad thing if they got someone from back up at a group of 5 school, FCS starter, something like that, just to add depth. I could see them doing either of those.
Yeah, I think for me, it would have to be a fairly significant upgrade over Whit Neubauer in the backup spot, who is also comfortable being the backup because, they're not going to bring in somebody who's going to have a chance to really, push John Mateer. We know that. They feel really good about Bentley beyond that. So you've got to have somebody who is, got that mindset of being able to be the backup for a season, which is why I think they stand pat. And Whit Neubauer is sort of, like Ryan was saying, a bridge depending on, if something happens, if it's early in the season, maybe you go Neubauer. If it's later in the season, maybe Bentley's ready to go.
Yeah, it's I think that if we were in the old days, that like you said, maybe. But as of right now, a guy that has had some starting experience, and look, you load up a bunch of these weapons all over the place. That you're kind of in the panic mode if John Mateer's not playing football anyway. Even if you're rolling a Bo Bentley out there, and I think everyone kind of gets that. It's like it's kind of goes back to something that Kirby Smart said. I go back to this a ton at SEC Media Days. The big change that you're now just going to have is teams have to rely on freshmen and sophomores as their depth. That is now kind of what a lot of people will need to make that thing happen. And I don't think that the quarterback position, honestly, is any different, because you look across Missouri when Bo Perbula was out because of some injuries. What are they doing? Just having to throw guys out there. I think that's a little bit of what the bit is there. But as always, we will have our ears to the ground, to the sky, wherever our ears need to be, they will be there. OklahomaSoonersOnSI.com is the website. It is always free. We don't have to turn off our Grok replies and notifications and all that stuff because we have no paywall. You just scroll. We have our portal tracker there as well. If you don't need the individual ones, you're just like, guys, just give me one large table and a paragraph max on every single person. I got the perfect thing for you. I've got 2 large tables and like 2 sentences on each guy. For the incoming guys, that has all the links to anyone that's been landed. If you want to read more, all that stuff, just head to the website. Bookmark it is honestly the easiest thing to do. If you do that, just refresh it a couple of times, because sometimes, even though I refresh it, if you've visited it recently, you need to clear a cookie, refresh it, all that stuff. But regardless, we have a large portal tracker there. Outside of...
Hey, Ryan, don't forget the newsletter. You can sign up for that newsletter, and it jumps right into your inbox, man.
Yeah, we have a newsletter. The easiest thing there, too, is if you head to the website, it usually pops up. The first day, if you subscribe to the newsletter, just look for it in your spam. If you don't get it, once you get it out of your spam, I know my first day, I had to pull it out of my spam folder, and then it comes into my inbox every single morning, and I'm just like, did Carson's story publish? Yes, the system got it out there because it's in my email inbox, and that's perfect there. Outside of awaiting a tight end coach, anything else happening on the football front? There was a big announcement that Sam Bradford is headlining a trio of Sooners that are headed into some halls of fame. Carson, I know that you did the big deep dive on that. We can hit that up real quick because that's KJ Kindler and a couple of gridiron greats, right?
Yeah, so it's Bradford, Rod Schote, and then KJ Kindler. Really obviously accomplished group right there. KJ Kindler, the current coach of the gymnastics team, which is kind of the gold standard in the sport. Sam Bradford, I mean, I grew up watching him, and he was fantastic. He's the first player I think of when I think of OU football, aside from maybe Adrian Peterson. So, I mean, he's fantastic. One of the best quarterbacks of my lifetime. Well-deserved. And then Rod Schote, he's someone I wasn't too familiar with, but seeing that he was a 3-time All-American, passed away sadly in 1999, but huge legacy at OU with some really good teams. So well-deserved honor for him too.
I got to say, it was really surprising to me that Rod Schote wasn't in yet, given the kind of player he was. I know, obviously, unfortunately, the ending for him sort of gets magnified, but to be a 3-time All-American, what was it, a 4-time, I believe, all Big 8 guy, just a monster at linebacker for those Sooners teams in the early 70s. And, certainly very well deserving. And, I was, like I said, I was a little bit surprised that he wasn't in yet, but certainly deserves to be.
I'll add this, guys. Ask Barry Switzer who his best linebacker was. Most days he'll say Brian Bosworth, but occasionally he'll say Rod Schote. That dude was just a tackling machine. Undersized, reminds you a little bit of Kip Lewis these days, undersized, gets under a lot of people, under a lot of blockers, but then just runs like hell. And he played for the Patriots and had a decent career for the Patriots before he got hurt. Got addicted to some stuff. Things didn't end well for him, like Ryan said, but and I think that probably overshadowed, hey, let's put this guy in our Hall of Fame. Oh, he had that kind of later in his life. Maybe we shouldn't do that yet. So I think that kind of held him back a little bit. But, yeah, Oklahoma Hall of Famer for sure. And then I covered every game Sam Bradford played, man. as unlikely a Heisman Trophy winner, just about, on the level of some of the guys you've seen in recent years, where he was a 2-star recruit, a 3-star recruit. Lloyd Carr from Michigan noticed him because Mike Leach noticed him in Oklahoma City. Mike Leach, wait, you're at Texas Tech. What are you doing, recruiting Oklahoma City? Well, he's smart. He goes to Oklahoma City to recruit guys. After Mike Leach found him, after Lloyd Carr identified him, Chuck Long comes in and says, maybe we should give this kid a look. And, 5 years later, he's an absolute legend.
Yeah, a Putnam City North legend, that
Yep.
is, John.
I was about to say, I was not going to be able to go back to radio if I did not mention the great Eddie Radosevich, one-time center/bus partner of Sam Bradford.
Caddy.
Yeah.
Let's call Eddie his caddy.
Panthers are everywhere,
Yeah, they are all over.
including this podcast. So
They are all over. I'm told sources, Ryan, something about always good day to be Panthers, things like that. I think there's something like that. If
yeah,
it is
absolutely, it
Hey,
is
the
always
thing that-
good to be a Panther.
The thing that stands out about Sam, he was an unbelievable golfer. He probably
Well,
still is. He was an
Golfer, and he
unbelievable
played hockey.
basketball player. He was an amazing hockey player. And he was a pretty good football player. And when he got to OU, they said, you can only play football here. And he's like, okay, so I'll focus on football. So he's this football player and all of a sudden focuses on football and, right off the charts. I mean, the guy was fantastic. I mean, set like every single game, single season, career, freshman, record that you could possibly set at Oklahoma. He shattered everything. And just an unbelievable dude.
And then, of course, the iconic Bedlam flip play, which is one of the greatest photographs in recent college. Well, not recent because it hadn't been. It's hard to think of that as not recent, but in this century of college football.
Who was it that called him like a giraffe that had been flipped upside down or something like that?
Oh
Was it-
gosh,
I think it might have been Cale Gundy.
It might have been.
It's pretty awesome. Good time to cover the Sooners, man.
He
No
gave
doubt
us
about
the English translation, not the Portuguese translation. This is my edition, which only I can bring this. Also, very notably, a famous Stoops Thanksgiving appearance by Sam Bradford. Quote, I am Batman. Anyway, that is all there. Carson probably has no clue what the Stoops Thanksgiving is, which that'll be something that I don't think I'm going to even assign that out as homework because whatever, weird, corporate crap. But anyway, I digress. While we digress, Chris Hummer has also reported that Oklahoma redshirt freshman Zion Reagans is headed to the portal. Thank you again for Brady Trantham being in the bunker, doing all of this right now. Not an
This
impact.
is such a great illustration, a snapshot of our existence, isn't it?
Yeah,
Hey guys, let's take 80% of our staff and put them in one room together and do a podcast. Oh, we got portal news. Like, okay, it's like dodging bullets or something, man.
It be what it be. Zion was not going to be a factor next year. Was not a factor at any point in Norman. We're not going to spend too much time on him. Only to note that is like the entirety of Emmett Jones's 2024 class in one door and out the other, which is not great. There. All right. As always, Oklahoma Sooners on SI.com. We will have all of the continued portal, everything, as I believe it was the Oklahoma Breakdown boys who labeled it as Portal Combat, which has been my favorite version of the portal labeling game, which we have done a lot of. Let's take a step out of the football world. Will you permit us to put on our squeaky sneakers for like 10 seconds here on our way out the door? By the time you listen to this, it might be old news when it comes to Oklahoma and Mississippi State, but we'll hit it anyway because it's a really, really big week for Porter Moser and crew. Carson got the Mississippi State game in Starkville tonight. Then is it Saturday that they're in College Station? Yeah, that it's a big one here, especially because this is kind of crazy to say, but if Oklahoma wins against Mississippi State, it will be the best start to conference play in Porter Moser's tenure at Oklahoma. They've not yet gone 2-0, and as we've talked about a bunch, Carson, with the SEC still having like a lot of tournament teams, but not 17 teams in the top 15, basically. Oklahoma needs to be able to go on the road and pick up a game against Mississippi State. Like, bare minimum, got to split this week. If you could get both, then you're over the moon and set up really nice for a couple of really tough home games next week.
Yeah, the conference is weird because I feel like the ceiling's lowered, but the floor is higher than it was last year. South Carolina was kind of the free win for everybody. There really isn't a free win in the conference this year. Ole Miss is maybe the quote unquote worst team in this league, and they're just outside of the top 100 in net. That was obviously OU's first win in conference play. They play Mississippi State, who's a little bit higher in the net. Josh Hubbard, one of the best guards in the country. He's been fantastic this year. So they're a really strong backcourt team, but it's a winnable game, and so is Saturday's game against Texas A&M. Both are good teams, but both are very beatable. A&M has a new coach. Mississippi State's front court isn't too good. So I think largely these two games are winnable. And even if they just split a 2-0, 2-1 start, I think that would be a really strong showing for Porter Moser's squad after how rough the beginning of SEC play has been in the past few years.
Yeah, it feels like this is like a steady ramp up of Ole Miss, Mississippi State are kind of in a similar realm. Then you take the step up to A&M on the road. Then you really get going at home. And I thought, Carson, it was one of the few times that it's been a pretty stress-free last 4 minutes against Ole Miss. And a lot of that feels like you have the experience of Tay Davis and Darion Reed and Nigel Pack in this kind of conference. And Xavier Brown's been awesome. You tell me, it seems like that ankle injury, which we maybe didn't know a ton about early, hampered him more than everyone wanted to let on because he's been awesome for like 6 straight games.
No, 100%. You've got to think that with how dominant he's looked, that 1-2 punch of him and Nigel Pack's impressive. They can shoot. They can also find their lanes. They've looked really clean despite being new players to this team this year. I do think that Brown's ankle injury definitely bugged him enough to where he wasn't putting up the same numbers that we're seeing right now. And now having him at full health, that's huge in this really good conference. So seeing similar production plus the improved play of the front court. I feel like the bigs have started to gel a lot better between Tay Davis and Darion Reed being new, Mo Wagee being an experienced guy who has a year under his belt with this program. They're starting to look good. Koala Talk's been really valuable off the bench. Kai Rogers, you're seeing his minutes increase. So just all in all, this is starting to look like more of a complete team, which is what you need to win in this league.
6 o'clock Wednesday night, OU, Mississippi State, 2:30 on Saturday, I believe. As Carson knows, I simply cannot put the schedule correctly in the calendar that we have. I'm sorry, my friend. Thank you for always keeping me straight on that. If you're listening after the Mississippi State game, hit up the website, OklahomaSooners.com. Carson's got the full recap, or will have the full recap if you're listening before then. What went right, what went wrong, hopefully what went right for the sake of building momentum. Carson will have all of that there on Wednesday night. Thursday night, a little bit of a twofer. You're about to get a tag team here as the Sooner women start one of the 2 really defining stretches of their schedule. 4 straight games against teams that are currently in the top 20. Starts on Thursday against Ole Miss, number 18, I believe. Then Sunday, they'll head to number 6 Kentucky, a massive, massive game. Come back home the next week, and it's 2 home games, one against LSU, who is fallen off a little bit in the rankings after Vanderbilt went in and kind of patted them on the head a little bit, and a jarring early season result in SEC play. And then it's OU and South Carolina that will close the loop on this 4-game stretch. Aber, Oklahoma back in the top 5, highest ranking since the end of the 08-09 season. They're on a 13-game streak, which is the second longest streak in program history. And it feels like everything we thought going into that UCLA game, you look at it, UCLA's 4, OU's 5, and this group, to me, Ryan, we'll talk to Jenny Baranchek here in a little bit today, feels ready. It seems they've done the necessary development, whether it be Kaya Smith, Brooklyn Stewart, continued great play from Zaya Van to build out this 8-9-man rotation that Jenny Baranchek and the Sooners are going to need, because the depth will be necessary here over the next 4 games and through the rest of SEC play.
Yeah, and as we've talked, that'll be sort of the barometer of how far this team is able to go, because their starting 5 is as good as anybody in the country. Keziah Lofton, another name in there who has really taken some significant steps recently. I think the biggest thing with this team is where their defense stands. And, for so long, that's been a question mark of Jenny Baranchik's teams, how their defense was could be disruptive, but couldn't just consistently defend on the ball. I think they're much better at that this year. I mean, you look holding Mississippi State to what was it, 20% from the field the other day. Just phenomenal for them. Their Zaya Van has taken some pretty significant steps forward on both ends of the floor. She's been fantastic. They've been able to hold on to the ball much better recently. The turnover numbers are way down for them, and this is going to be a defining stretch for them. But they're really well placed right now to compete with really all four of these teams. But if you can somehow go 3-1 during this stretch, you feel really good about yourself, because the rest of the schedule looks not easy, but certainly opens up a little bit after this 4-game stretch. But this will be a fun couple weeks for Jenny Baranchik's club.
Yeah, that'll be the other really, really big when you good games, obviously, but the other big oh my gosh stretch is the first week of February, I believe, where
February 1st and 9th.
There you go. Yeah, they've got their bye week, sort of, if that's what we want to call it, in between. But those are both road contests, right, Aber?
Yes, at Texas on February 1st and at Vandy on February 9th.
Yeah, Texas, the number 2 team in the country currently, and Vandy top 10 as well. Just 2 little bits here as well. Pick your game. You mentioned it, 20% against Mississippi State. That's the lowest opposing opponent field goal percentage that Oklahoma's allowed this year. The A&M game, they held them 0 for 10 from the floor in the third quarter. Now, A&M did get 7 points via the free throw line, but that's kind of the standard that they're setting right now. It's not just, hey, win these games. They are clubbing SEC teams. Now, they're bottom half SEC team, again. But what I've really enjoyed, and if anyone's ever watched, you know that Jenny Baranchik is intense for 40 straight minutes, always. But it really seems like in some of the third and fourth quarters, right? And you tell me if I'm just trying to see something that's there, but it almost seems like Jenny knows how good this team can be, and she has ratcheted up her intensity, specifically with stuff happening on the defensive end of the floor, even in these 2 blowouts, because I think that she knows this stretch ahead, they have a finite amount of minutes on the floor together between practice and these games to get fully tuned up and calibrated for this 4-game stretch.
Yeah, absolutely. And she talked about not specifically this stretch, but talked about just that need here when we talked to her in December, just that need to keep up that intensity coming out of halftime and be able to turn it up and maybe make some adjustments and do some things differently, but also to be able to really sort of put your foot on the neck of an opponent when you've got them down. And this is a team that's going to have a lot of people down at halftime. But, heck, as we've seen with the Thunder, sometimes when you're having a lot of success, you can let up a little bit, and it's just sort of human nature there. But there hasn't been any let up in this team as of yet. And I think the way that they've come out out of halftime in both these games against opponents that, yes, are in the bottom half of the SEC, but when you're in the bottom half of the SEC, you're still a pretty good women's basketball team. They've been able to thrive in those situations, and I think that'll serve them well here entering this season-defining stretch.
It's going to be a pretty darn good couple of weeks at the Lloyd Noble Center. Lloyd Noble Center specifically, like we said, it starts Thursday on the women's side of things with Ole Miss. Then next week, the Sooner men come back home. It's the SEC schedule a little bit weird. It's more like 2 games on the road, 2 games at home, stuff like that. Oklahoma will host Florida and Alabama. I don't know if Florida will work their way back up into the top 25, but defending champs, certainly playing a lot better now than it feels like as they were feeling stuff out early in the year. You're going to have 2 straight games on the men's side, Florida and Alabama, and then it's going to flip back around for LSU and South Carolina on the women's side. So a bunch of quality basketball, a bunch of quality hoops coming through the LNC. So get out there, and if you want to keep up with all of it, Oklahoma Sooners on SI SI.com is the place to be. Gentlemen, have we missed anything?
I have a question. You know
Yes.
me, I have a question.
Daily Double.
Yeah, the Daily Double. The roster, I just counted it up. The roster for the Alabama game, right, the Oklahoma playoff game against Alabama, had 110 players on it. 110. They have lost 25 now. Of that number, Jaden Gibson wasn't on it. So it's a little bit fluctuation there. But they've lost 25 to the portal, and they've added 10. So that's a net of minus 15, which when you're talking about SEC and NCAA scholarship limits at 105, you're coming down from, 110. So just some numbers to keep up with in terms of where they're at and filling this one to drain from that one. And they're probably going to need to lose a few more is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, you got portal, you got graduation that is on the out tally, you got all the freshmen coming in as well as these portal guys. So this is, like we said, I think that the portal keeps spinning. I don't know how many more guys just off the top of the dome, but I also don't think that's like a panic moment. I think that you're just seeing there's a lot of guys that are going to start looking around and going, if you're going to bring in 2-3 wide receivers, then I'm probably going to go look for some opportunities elsewhere, which I don't think is a panic button. But like we've said, there are a couple names that you go, yep, you're going to miss that guy. A lot of these names on the portal out list is like, okay, well, good luck to you. So long. Thanks for all the fish.
The way you described it keeps spinning. It reminds me of my first year of elementary school, kindergarten. We walk out to the merry-go-round. This is old school, so there's like bodies everywhere. There's this merry-go-round going, and the big kids are pushing it, and the little kids are flying off left and right. But other kids are jumping on, trying to get on, while that thing's still spinning. That's exactly what this transfer portal is like. Bodies are flying out, landing who knows where, and other kids who are brave are saying, "I want on that thing." So, just an interesting analogy.
Yeah, we'll see. We will see. One of those guys, we'll get to say what's up to Javonte Barnes. He's headed to Kentucky. He'll be back in Norman on October 17th. So, good luck there. Boys, we could probably talk for 10, 15 more minutes and get 7 more bits of news, but that means that Brady has to stay stowed away in his bunker, which we don't want to confide him there. So we're going to go ahead and sign off per usual. All the happenings will be at Oklahoma Sooners on SI.com. That is the place to be, and we will talk to you in podcast form next Wednesday. But for Aber, for Carson, for Hoover, Ryan Chapman, thank you guys so much for tapping in, for following along, and for locking in with us here. We will talk to you guys on the Sooners on SI podcast next Wednesday. Peace.